Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cabin Fever Astronomy with me, Diana Yoder. This program is presented by Dayton Society of Natural History in Dayton, Ohio, and accompanied by two other daily programs we are offering while our doors are closed to the public. Today's episode is all about Orion. The first section of our episode is all about the sky tonight. What is something you can see from your backyard later tonight? Well, shortly after sunset, if you look towards the south and find the brightest star in the sky, you will have found the star Sirius. This will be tomorrow's Cabin Fever Astronomy episode. Don't forget to check out that because Sirius is a seriously cool star to learn about. But for today, we are looking a little higher and to the right. Here you will find what might be a familiar shape, the constellation Orion. Orion is well known for the bright stars right in a row that make up Orion's belt. Above his belt are two stars that make up his shoulders, and below are two stars that make up his knees. The picture you see here is a composite, or collection, of over 30 different pictures taken by Wojtek Bauer. Each picture is a long exposure, allowing more light to be captured. This gives us much more detail than the human eye can see. Orion is known to be a fierce hunter in Greek mythology. He is often viewed to be holding a club high overhead and holding a shield out in front of him. If you're having a little trouble seeing a man in this image, that's perfectly fine. It takes a lot of practice to easily recognize constellations in the night sky. Before we take a closer look at Orion, let's back up a second and review what a constellation actually is. There is a group of people called the International Astronomical Union that get to decide what makes a constellation. For research purposes, they have mapped the entire sky into 88 different boxes or constellations. This way, no matter where a cool object like an asteroid or a comet appears in the sky, they can find it based off of what constellation it is appearing in at the time. However, this is not very useful for most people. Each constellation also has an image associated with it. While beautiful, these pictures don't really help us to learn the stars. We can also play connect the dots with the stars. This way, we can easily find familiar shapes and patterns and link them to constellation names across our sky. Let's take a closer look at Orion. On the left, I have a long exposure image of the stars in Orion. On the right, I've played connect the dots to help you to see the main body of the hunter. If this still doesn't look like a hunter to you, here is an artist's interpretation of the stars as well. On the left is a traditional Greek interpretation of the constellation with a club and shield. On the right is the Navajo version, with a bow and arrow. Even though the Greeks and Navajo were across the world from each other, they both looked into the sky and saw a hunter. On to our next section, Astrophysics Light. You may have heard about the constellation Orion in the news lately, or even just one of the stars in particular, Betelgeuse. Let's talk about that. In general, the night sky is fairly static. Not much changes over the course of a few days, months, or even years. The exception to this would be anything in our solar system, planets, moons, asteroids, things like that. But stars and deep sky objects tend to stay the same. Stars live for millions or sometimes billions of years. That means the few centuries we've been looking at them is no time at all. When astronomers see something changing, we get excited. If something is changing and we can't immediately explain why, we get even more excited. In December of 2019, astronomers noticed that one of the stars in Orion was getting dimmer. Betelgeuse was changing and relatively rapidly. By February 2020, it was significantly dimmer than normal. So much so, amateur astronomers could see the difference with their naked eyes. No telescopes needed. This got a lot of people excited. Betelgeuse is what we call a red supergiant. This means that the star is extremely massive and approaching the end of its life. Once it runs out of fuel, it will explode into a supernova and then either become a neutron star or a black hole, depending on its mass. Astronomers would love to document a supernova, and they don't happen very often. To compare, here are two images of Betelgeuse taken 1 year apart. Something has clearly changed in December 2019 to dim the star. However, in mid-February of this year, it appears to have stopped dimming and may even be getting brighter again. This, among other reasons, makes astronomers believe that a supernova is not imminent. Alternate theories include a large mass ejection around the star or a cloud in space passing between the star and the Earth. We're still not quite sure why the star dimmed. But that brings us to our next section, Tour the Universe. Today we will be looking at nebulas. This image should look familiar to you. We have been talking about it this whole time. Believe it or not, this is the constellation Orion. On the lower left, you can see the bright red star Betelgeuse. In the middle are the 3 stars of Orion's belt, and on the right are Orion's 2 knees. This image might help you out a bit. As you can see, a lot is going on up in the sky. Our eyes are only good enough to see the simple, bright stars, but with the proper equipment, we can reveal a whole world of nebulas. Here is another image of Orion. This one is simply rotated upwards, so Orion's head is upright instead of laying down. Can you see it? How about now? This brings me to my next question. What is a nebula? A nebula can be several different things. Astronomers use that term both for regions in space that create stars, as well as the leftovers from a dying star. Essentially, a nebula is simply a collection of gas and dust in space. When we look at something like the Orion molecular cloud complex we just saw, we are seeing several massive nebulas all joined together in one region of space. This particular image might look familiar to you. It's a very popular picture of the Orion Nebula. This is just one small piece of the massive star-forming region known as the Orion molecular cloud complex, found throughout the constellation Orion. But how do we get such beautiful images of space? This brings us to our final section, space robots. Space robots is all about instruments we have launched into space in order to learn new things. Today we will talk about the Hubble Space Telescope. Hubble, or HST, is 30 years old and still doing science. It was launched back in 1990 and still operational today despite the age of the equipment. Hubble has been serviced multiple times over the years, from a faulty mirror at launch to changing its batteries in 2009. Hubble has exceeded everyone's expectations in lifespan. Some scientists believe the telescope might continue to be operational until the 2030s. Hubble specializes in the visible light spectrum, or rather, it's really good at seeing what our eyes could see if they were just a lot better at collecting light. Most of the modern space telescopes view light in wavelengths that we cannot see here on Earth, like gamma or X-ray. Here are a few examples of the most beautiful images Hubble has taken. It can see everything from supernova remnants in the top left corner to evidence of gravitational lensing in the center. Hubble has been an excellent way to engage the public with astronomy and NASA's goals simply by producing beautiful images. One of the most breathtaking images taken by the Hubble telescope is the ultra-deep field. This image was achieved by having Hubble stare at one tiny spot in space for a long, long time. The results are astounding. Just about every point of light you see in this image is not a star, but a galaxy filled with hundreds of thousands of stars. As the video plays, we slowly zoom out from the spot in the sky Hubble was staring at. Slowly, galaxies start to disappear, and the points of light that we see are stars inside the Milky Way galaxy instead of those individual galaxies. Until finally, the image is replaced by the night sky as seen from Earth. We're still zooming out, You can barely even see where that original image was. And here we are, back on Earth. And that concludes today's episode. If you have any questions, please leave them as a comment on our Facebook post. On Friday, we will be answering a selection of questions in our Cabin Fever Astronomy episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to tune in again tomorrow morning for more science.